What is this? What are you thinking giving me something like this as a gift? The gift that I received from my husband was to celebrate the birth of our baby. I immediately threw it into a trash can. Upon seeing my actions, my in-laws were surprised and took the gift out of the trash can. However, as soon as they saw the contents of the gift, they understood why I had thrown away, and my in-laws began to tremble. I have decided that I will never forgive my husband for this. My name is Tyra. I am 32 years old. After graduating from high school, I worked as a sales clerk at a vintage clothing store, but I quit my job when I got pregnant. My husband is Joshua. We worked in the same building. Whenever my colleagues saw Joshua, they would always make a big fuss about him, because he was tall, handsome, and stylish, and stood out in the building. There were many people working in that building, and we didn't even know him, so we called him Prince. Hey, I passed by Prince today. Today is my lucky day. I also reported to all my colleagues as soon as I saw Joshua. The first time I talked to him was a few years after joining the company. I stumbled and fell when carrying cardboard boxes on a cart, scattering the clothes in the boxes all over the floor. While I was trying to pick them up, my husband happened to pass by and helped me. Are you okay? He said with a sparkling smile. He was not only good-looking on the outside, but also on the inside. My face turned bright red in the presence of such a dazzling man. When I returned to the store and told my colleagues about what had just happened, they were thrilled, and I still remember it well. From then on, I became acquainted with him and started talking to him whenever I ran into him. The more I talked to him, the more I liked him. I mustered up the courage to invite him to dinner, and he gladly accepted. The more we talked, the more I fell in love with him. And despite it being our first dinner together, I blurted out my confession. I like you too. Let's go out. He agreed. And I was so happy that I couldn't stop smiling even when I got home. Whenever we met, he was still perfect, just like my first impression of him. Perhaps I was looking at him through rose-colored glasses because I liked him so much. However, we often had trouble staying in touch when we were apart. It was common for me to get a response on WhatsApp a day later. I'm sorry, I don't check my phone that often. He often said that. Since we didn't communicate frequently, I was always super excited when I could finally see him. Because of that, even after 3 years of dating, my love for him had not changed. I had come to think that I wanted to be with this person forever. After a while, I found out I was pregnant. Really? I'm happy too. Let's get married. When I told Joshua, he soon proposed to me. While he was stroking my stomach, he was happy that we were going to have a child. I was so happy to marry my beloved husband that I couldn't stop crying. Because my morning sickness was severe, it was difficult to continue working in sales, which involved standing all day, so I decided to quit my job. When I told my colleagues, they cried and rejoiced as if it were their own news. Since I became a housewife, I did my best to do the household chores that I was not particularly good at before. My husband was worried about me because of my severe morning sickness, so he would come home right after work. On days when I had a checkup, I would report the baby's growth to my husband when he came home. Those were such happy days. I had a very good relationship with my parents-in-law as well. Our new home was close to my in-laws' home, and my mother-in-law often made side dishes and brought them over. There was no typical mother-in-law bullying, and she always spoke kind words to me. I can't wait to see my grandchild soon. You take care of yourself, Tyra. okay? On days when my morning sickness was bad, she would sometimes take over the household chores, and I couldn't thank her enough. Even if my husband was not there on weekends due to work, I sometimes went out with my parents-in-law to buy groceries and such. My father-in-law always encouraged me, saying, "Tyra, you will give birth to a healthy child. Do not worry about anything." I admired my parents-in-law as if they were my real parents. I had a difficult upbringing due to a poor home environment since childhood. Since I started working, I had almost no contact with my parents and was in a state of almost estrangement. So I was happy that my parents-in-law treated me as a real daughter. However, after half a year of marriage, there were some times when my husband did not come home at the usual time. He did not answer my phone calls or WhatsApp messages. Even if we were dating, he was slow to communicate, but after getting married, it was different. I worried endlessly that he might have been in an accident and waited for him while staring at the prepared meal in front of me and looking at my phone. When he finally came home late at night, I asked him, "Where have you been? If you were going to be late, please let me know."
"Sorry, I didn't look at my phone. My boss invited me to dinner."
He said it with an innocent face. I thought I had worried for nothing and feeling exhausted from worrying too much. I didn't feel like saying anything back to him. From then on, the days when he came home late increased day by day. The reasons varied, such as having trouble at work, eating with senior colleagues or coworkers. It became normal for me not to be able to get in touch with him on days when he came home late, and I stopped asking for reasons. With my anxious feelings, my belly also grew bigger. I was excited about having a baby, but I was worried about whether I could raise the child with my husband. At that time, I was told the gender of the child during a checkup, and it was a boy. It was an event that made me feel excited for the first time in a long time. Even though my husband came home late that day, I immediately told him the news. "Listen, the baby is a boy."
"Oh, I see,"
he replied with a disinterested tone. "Huh? You're not curious about your baby's gender? Why do you act like this?"
"You're annoying. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. Night."
He said it in an irritated voice, which was unusual. I was shocked and even cried. Ignoring me while I was crying, he went to the bedroom. I became even more anxious about our married life with the baby. The next day, I consulted with my mother-in-law when she came to our house.
"Men are like that, you know. It's easy to become anxious during pregnancy. Don't think too much about it, so you can give birth to a healthy baby."
I didn't fully agree with my mother-in-law, but she was saying might be correct. The more I thought about it, the more anxious I became. I decided not to think too much for the sake of my baby in my belly. However, my husband would come home late every day, and even on his days off, he would go out somewhere. I had accumulated mistrust towards him. One day, as usual on his day off, my husband tried to go out somewhere, so I asked him, "Hey, where are you going? Do you not care about me and our unborn child? I could give birth any time now. I had had enough." I exploded and cried out. Seeing me, my husband said,
"I'm sorry, honey, for making you feel that way. I just have some urgent business that cannot be postponed. If anything happens, please let me know. I will keep an eye on my phone, okay?"
My husband hugged me and said those words. I was surprised by his kind words, as I was prepared to fight with him. If he spoke to me like that, I couldn't blame him anymore. In the end, my husband went out. But he quickly responded to my WhatsApp messages that day. I was glad that our relationship was repaired before birth. My mother-in-law came every day and stayed by my side, so I felt relieved. I told my husband the due date many times and reminded him every morning before he left.
Okay, take care.
My husband said so and went out. Finally, one day, the contraction started, and I contacted my mother-in-law, who rushed over to me immediately.
Here he comes!
Make sure you can go to the hospital any time. My mother-in-law prepared everything efficiently. I had messaged my husband in WhatsApp. The contraction became shorter, and we headed to the hospital. I checked my phone, but there was no response from my husband. Even when I called him, he didn't answer. But please tell Joshua to come. I asked my mother-in-law to pass on the message, since I was in pain and couldn't do it myself.
He will definitely come before the baby is born. Tyra, just focus on giving birth.
My mother-in-law tried to encourage me. However, hours passed after arriving at the hospital, and my husband didn't show up. I couldn't stop thinking about my husband's absence. I asked my mother-in-law many times about Joshua, but she would only reply, "He will come soon." I think she said that to reassure me. A healthy baby boy was born, despite various difficulties. And when I saw my child for the first time, tears of joy couldn't stop flowing. In the end, my husband never showed up. I gave birth late at night, and he should have been done with work by then. I thought I could no longer trust my husband. Please tell Joshua not to come anymore. When I told my mother-in-law that, she nodded with a troubled expression. During the hospitalization, my husband never showed up. My in-laws visited me every day, so I didn't feel lonely or anxious. On the day I left the hospital with my in-laws, my husband was waiting at home. He looked awkward and said,
"I'm really sorry, Tyra. I bought this for you."
He handed me a box. Although I didn't plan on forgiving him easily, I accepted the box without saying anything. It was a box of expensive baby clothes. However, as soon as I opened it, I screamed.
"What is this? Why would you give me this?"
I immediately threw the box into the trash, and my mother-in-law rushed over in a panic.
Tyra, why did you do that? Even though what Joshua did was wrong, it was a nice gift.
Saying that, my mother-in-law took the box I threw away from the trash. As soon as she saw what was inside the box, she started to shaking. And no wonder. Inside a box were girls' clothes with the name Mary written on them. I didn't understand the meaning and felt even more scared.
What is this, Joshua? Who is Mary? You should know the gender and name of your child.
My mother-in-law glared at my husband, and he muttered in a small voice,
"Oh, shoot. I messed up."
"What? How can you make a mistake like that?"
No, well,
When I tried to speak, my husband became flustered and couldn't say anything.
"Joshua, answer me now. What is this?"
Even though my father-in-law yelled at my husband, he remained frozen and didn't answer anything. "I don't want to see your face anymore. You're not qualified to be the father of this child. You're not qualified to be my husband either. Now, get the hell out of my sight," I shouted, and my mother-in-law continued.
"Joshua, you are hiding something, don't you? Well, it doesn't matter now. Just get out."
Then my father-in-law pulled my husband out of the house. As soon as my husband left, my son, who had been sleeping soundly until then, started crying. After putting my son to sleep, I thought about investing Joshua's affair.
Tyra, you may not want to know, but it will surely be material for divorce. It's better to investigate Joshua thoroughly.
My father-in-law said seriously to me. Yes, I was planning to do that too. My mother-in-law was crying next to him.
I'm really sorry about my son.
A few days later, my father-in-law brought me the result from the private detective. We found out everything about my husband. He had a child with his lover, who was born around the same time as my child. He gave me the present that was supposed to be given to his lover. She knew that he was married. It turned out that he had been spending time with her at her house since 6 months after our marriage. Did he think he wouldn't get caught? I couldn't forgive him, nor his lover. My father-in-law apologized to me many times, and my mother-in-law kept crying.
I'm really sorry. I can't apologize enough.
Please, don't apologize. Thanks to you too, I was able to safely give birth. I don't hold any grudges against either of you, but I can never forgive Joshua. Can you help me? Both of my in-laws couldn't forgive him either, so they agreed to help. Later, while my mother-in-law was watching the baby, my father-in-law, a lawyer, and I went to the home of Joshua's mistress. When we ran the intercom, my husband was surprised to see us. You look well, Joshua. I already know everything. My husband looked as flustered. My father-in-law slapped his cheek hard. As I watched the baby sleeping soundly in the arms of the mistress, tears flowed from my eyes.
Let's begin the procedures. First, please sign the divorce papers.
Under the law, my husband and I would be completely separated. The lawyer then explained the amount of compensation and child support and tried to get them to sign the agreement. However, the mistress said something ridiculous. I can't pay that much. Why do I have to pay? The baby was just born.
That's because you committed adultery.
The mistress couldn't say anything, and my husband, though surprised at the moment, signed the papers. The child is innocent, but you have no right to be happy. So please, pay the amount in full. And please never come near us again. I said this as I was leaving. Feeling relieved, I told my former colleagues everything that had happened. They were as angry as if it had happened to them. And apparently, they told others at different stores. The rumor spread quickly, and my husband found it difficult to work at his job and eventually quit. With the rumor spreading so far, he wouldn't be able to find work in the same industry again. My son is a very expressive child, and I can't wait to see what kind of expression he will have every day. I am grateful that my in-laws are helping me with all their might. I think I have become stronger than before. I want to grow with my son every day to become a great mother.